I'd like to say I'm okay, but I'm not. I try, but I fall. Close my mind, turn it up. But I can't be sober.
I invite you all to stand, please, ladies and gentlemen.
You've got your peace now, but what about me? Thought we had the time, had our lives, now you never get older, older. Didn't say goodbye, now I'm frozen in time, getting colder, colder. One last word, one last moment to ask you why you left me here behind. You said you'd grow old with me. We had plans, we had visions. Now I can see ahead. We were one, we were golden, forever you said. But I can be sober, I cannot sleep. You've got your peace now, but what about me? Thought we had the time, had our lives, now you never get older, older. Didn't say goodbye, now I'm frozen in time, getting colder, colder. One last word, one last moment to ask you why you left me here behind. You said you'd grow old with me. Thought we had the time, had our lives, now you never get older, older. Didn't say goodbye, now I'm frozen in time, getting colder, colder. Just one last word, one last moment to ask you why you left me here behind. You said you'd grow old with me.
If you love something, you love it completely. You cherish it, you say it, but most importantly, you show it. Life is finite, life is fragile, and just because something is there one day, it may not be the next. Never take that for granted. Say what you need to say, and then say it a little more. Say too much, show too much, love too much, because everything is temporary, but love, and love outlives us all. I think, unfortunately, that I know most of you already, but for those that I don't, my name is Simon, and along with Rennie and each of the staff here at Parkside, we have been honoured to have been entrusted with caring for Stephen and his family, Kim, Graham, Vinnie, Lily, Stephen, Nicole, Jace, Sandra, Marcus and Adam, after his death, and of being able to conduct this service here. As funeral directors, we are invited into the lives of many families for a few short days to support them and to help them in the planning of a service such as this, as they say these, their most final of goodbyes to someone that they love. But today, for all of us, just hits that little bit different. While we often know the people that we are asked to eulogise, it is not often to the level of knowing that we have all shared with Steve. So please, I ask you to forgive me if I need to take a few moments or a few deep breaths as we move through our afternoon together. Due to current circumstances and distance, I know that there are many people who unfortunately can't be with us this afternoon. And so I'd like to mention that we are thinking of all of those people who can't be here, as I'm sure that they are taking a few quiet moments to think of all of us, and that they are remembering Steve in their own ways. For those of you who are viewing this service via live stream or at a later time, I welcome you also. Your presence is equally as important to all of us here today. After our service here in the chapel, we'll be escorting Steve on his final journey. And as the family move through the chapel to the gathering room, I ask that you give them some space and some time as they gather with Steve to say their own private and personal goodbyes to him. Please feel welcome to gather and wait at the rear of the chapel for Steve's family to rejoin us, where we will join in a time of refreshment and a time of sharing our support, our condolences, and maybe some of our own stories with each other and with Steve's family. During this time, I ask you to be sensitive with Steve's family, and especially his children. With a death like Steve's, there are more questions than there are answers, and today is not the right time. I ask you to please bear that in mind. We wish that today was not happening. We have wished that the past few weeks had not have happened. Over these last few weeks, we have all felt a vast range of emotions, swinging from shock to grief, from hurt to anger, from guilt to accusation, from acceptance and to judgment, from grief to bewilderment, and all over again. It's important, I think, to listen to your feelings. For some of us, listening to them takes a little bit of time, and I know for me it takes some practice. But I encourage you to not deny yourself this time. It's important that we all remember the times that we shared with Steve, and that we reminisce about him together, just as we're doing today. Over the next few weeks, few months, and even years ahead, I encourage you to reach out. Reach out to Steve's family, his circle of friends, to each other, to check in, to make sure that we're all going okay. Because the love and the support, the kindness and the respect, a non-judgmental listening ear of a close friend can all help to make sense of the thoughts and the questions that are rattling around in all of our heads. If you feel that you need help, please don't be afraid to ask for it. Stephen was a treasured and valued member of his family, his circle of friends, his colleagues, and his loss leaves all of us feeling shattered, empty, and lost. To Kim, you and Steve have shared a relationship spanning some 17 years, with all the highs and the lows that come along with that. You chose each other to love, to share a life together, to buy a house, to make a beautiful family of your own, to support each other and face down whatever come your way. A little reading I found says this: because the world didn't stop spinning when you stopped breathing, I am at the mercy of time. I'm travelling in two opposite directions every minute of every day, further from you, yet closer to being reunited with you. It's a headspace that's impossible to imagine unless you've lost someone that you thought you couldn't live without. To Graham, to Vinnie, Lily and Stephen, there are going to be some really sad days ahead for all of you, but Stephen will always be your dad. On those sad days, please remember how much he loved you, how he had anticipated sharing his life with you and watching you grow up. I remind and encourage each of you to talk about your dad. Ask to hear his stories, the memories that we all hold of him, so that through all of us, our memories and stories, that you, his children, will have a greater understanding of the man that was your dad, and you'll be able to know the person that he was. Remember his sense of fun and allow yourselves to go on and enjoy life. Stephen would want that. Sandra. Stephen was your youngest boy, who for his 39 years you have moulded, you have shaped, you have taught and encouraged to help him grow into the man that he had become. And I'm sure on that journey that you shared with Steve, that he also shaped you. I know that you and Steve shared a close bond, and his loss will leave a Stephen-shaped hole in your life that can never be filled. To the rest of us, Stephen was a brother-in-law, an uncle, a nephew, a cousin, a colleague, and a friend. Maybe you went to school together, or maybe like me, me and Steve, you worked together. To all of us, I say, remember the Stephen that you knew and that you loved. Callie said to me the other day a little comment, and she said, whether you had known Stephen for 1 year or for 39 years, he would always surprise you with what he would say. Sometimes he would drop a little pearl of wisdom, or sometimes a dry, humorous comment that would leave you in stitches of laughter. I'd like to remind you that whatever your relationship that you shared with Stephen, that it still is. The relationship has changed, but it hasn't ended. Remember the stories. Tell them again and again. I encourage you to talk about Stephen so that through you, he will live on. One of the doctors of Who once said that a straight line may be the shortest distance between 2 points, but it is by no means the most interesting. And so now I will share with you a little about Stephen's not so straight line, and share some thoughts and memories from the people who have loved him. Stephen Scott Diprose was born in Burnie on the 2nd of July 1986 to parents Sandra and Graham, a younger brother for Marcus and for Adam. Sandra told me that Stephen was her little surprise baby. Sandra and Graham had thought that their family was complete until she found out that she was pregnant again, only 11 weeks before he was born. They had sold all of their baby things, and so they had to go out and buy them all over again. Sandra said she was convinced that this time she was having a girl, and had the name Stephanie picked out for him. If only we had have known that, Sandra. Stephen started his schooling in Penguin at Penguin Primary before moving on to Penguin High. I was told that Steve didn't always get along with his teachers, which I thought was pretty hard to believe. One teacher in particular was always on to him about the size of his handwriting being too big, and so, Stephen being Stephen, the next time he had to do some writing, he wrote the writing so small that the teacher wasn't able to read it. Another teacher told Steve that he had to read books other than Goosebumps. Stephen's response was to just stop reading. I'm guessing his stubborn streak started quite young. Steve's favourite colour was red, and he wore a bright red suit to his leavers dinner, and I'm pretty sure that may have been where his love of a suit began. Steve has always had a fascination with computers and IT. The first computer the family ever had when Steve was a kid had a problem, and Steve thought he could fix it. And after some time, he finally had to admit that he couldn't in fact fix it, and so an IT fella was called in. Apparently, whatever Stephen had done to that computer made it forget that it was a computer, and Sandra was not happy. Steve has loved games and gaming all of his life. He had Atari and Nintendo consoles, and he was an ace at them. He could hardly ever be beaten. Also loving board games and card games, a love that he has carried right through his life, and a love that he's passed on to his own family. After leaving school, Steve put himself through an IT and a computer networking course. He was never afraid of using Shanks's pony or walking. He would walk home from Helier College to Penguin rather than just waiting 15 minutes to catch the bus. Sandra remembers him walking one year at Christmas time from Burnie to Ulverston. Stephen's always had a strong work ethic. He started work in the old Mission Hill Road milk bar and then down at the servo in Penguin pumping petrol. Wanting a new start, Steve saved up some money and he packed up his stuff and he headed off to Queensland, living with his auntie. On his first day in Queensland, Stephen borrowed her car and he drove himself into Brisbane, never having driven in a big city before. He just got on with it and did it. Steve lived in Queensland for about 3 years and he got a job working at a furniture store in Brisbane. Every day he would go to McDonald's for breakfast, for lunch and for dinner. He was such a regular customer that they offered him a job, which he was stoked about, as now he could get his Maccas with the staff discount. Steve often used to joke that he had eaten the McDonald's menu inside out and back to front. Stephen loved Queensland. It would become his go-to place for a trip away. He loved the warmth, and he especially loved the theme parks. Over the last few years, he'd been enjoying taking his kids away on trips, visiting all of the theme parks as they got old enough and brave enough to get on the rides and enjoy the thrills. So Steve returned back to Tassie and he moved in with his nan, Lillian, becoming her carer and helping her to stay at home independently. I can remember Steve telling me that when he arrived back in Tassie, he applied for every job that he could in the paper. And one of those jobs was with Vincent Funerals. Steve started with Vincent's and he knew straight away that he had found his niche, funeral work. He loved the work, and as time went on, he learnt his craft and excelled. 2009 was a big year for Steve, and in the May, he met Kimberly. They were at a party together with mutual friends, and when Kim saw Steve across the room in his suit and his steel cap boots, she knew that he was something pretty special. Steve was, in his own words to us in the office just a few weeks ago, a modern man, after all. Apparently, they stayed up all night talking, I think. From then on, Steve and Kim were inseparable. It was also in 2009 that Stephen came here to work at Parkside, but I'll share a little more about that later on. It wasn't too long before Steve and Kim started their family, with Graham arriving in November 2010. Stephen and Kim married right here in this chapel in 2011. In fact, I think it was Dudley who helped them tie the knot. Thank you, Dudley. Stephen and Kim brought their home in Belton Street, and as it had 5 bedrooms, they soon set about filling it up. Vincent, joined the family in March 2012, followed by Ruby in 2015. Sadly, Ruby's little life was over before it started. Ruby was followed by another girl, Lily, in October 2013, and finally, little Stephen Jr., better known as Spud, a slightly late Christmas present, in December 2017. It was also during this time that Kim and Steve's niece, Nicole, came to live with them, making it easier for Nicole to access education, moving up from Tulla, just in case the house wasn't yet full enough. As I mentioned earlier, Steve loved holidays. For their honeymoon, Steve and Kim boarded a cruise and set sail to the South Pacific, to Nemea, Lefou, and the islands around New Caledonia. They had a wonderful time, and I can remember Stephen reminiscing to me many times about that cruise over the years. To end the honeymoon, they also had a few days in Queensland before returning home to Tassie. Steve loved being a dad. He loved getting out and about with his kids, even buying a minibus recently so the whole family could go away together. As I mentioned, he was in the process of taking the kids on trips to Queensland, enjoying with them the thrills of the theme parks. In earlier years, he loved taking the family on camping trips to Baker's Beach, joining his mum and dad, Sandra and Graham. He loved going to the games days at Leading Edge with Graham, barbecues and plays in the park, swimming at the Burnie Pool, and weekends going to the Windmill Hill Pool in Launceston, board and card game nights, and a recent trip to the new water park at Scottsdale. Vinny has written the following tribute and asked me to share it with you. He's written, "I love my dad so much. I love it when we would go fishing together and when we would go bike riding. Every weekend we would play board games and find new things to 3D print together. I loved it when we played 7 Days to Die together and Stardew Valley. I'm going to miss you heaps, Dad. And as we would always say, every night, without fail, and probably more times than we needed to, good night. I love you. See you. See you in the morning. Only now I will say good night. I love you. See you. See you when we meet again. Love, Vincent." Steve was the sort of person who, when he decided he was interested in something, he jumped into it, boots and all. He went through fads, and just a few of them were running. He competed in many Burnie 10s. He got covered in mud at the Burnie Challenge. He ran marathons. Fishing, and I was told that he would sometimes forget to sunscreen up, and he would end up red raw and lobster red. Bike riding. He loved Halloween. He loved karate. And he loved painting tiny models and figurines. Steve was opinionated, and he had strong feelings and strong convictions on things. We had many debates, with probably, I think, the hottest topic between me and him was being on how many millions of dollars the government had spent just so people like me could get married. And he would ask me, why aren't I married, after he had spent so much money on making it possible. Steve was a collector, just like his dad Graham. He had nearly every Goosebumps book ever printed. He loved Lego. He loved the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And as Vinny mentioned, he loved 3D printing, and he would design many of his own patterns. And recently, he had a stall over at the market in Wynyard to sell some creations. A couple of years ago, Stephen started his training for his embalming with Mortuary and Funeral Educators, MFE, based in Melbourne. This was a highlight for Steve and for his career. Steve earned the respect of the people that he trained with and the embalming mentors that he worked under. He excelled in his training and he qualified in November 2024. We never got to meet a lot of these people, but when Steve returned from his weeks away, he would talk highly of them when he returned. And I thank those people who have reached out and who have offered their support, their thoughts, and their condolences over these last couple of weeks. Steve often teamed his trips away to Melbourne for training, with a weekend away, often with Kim flying over to join him in Melbourne, and they loved to see stage shows and musicals. A few of the ones I can remember him telling me were Beetlejuice, The Walking Dead, and The Lord of the Rings. And I remember him telling of the time that he went to Dracula's, which he apparently didn't enjoy, and he said that people were falling asleep, people were leaving, and I booed loudly. Steve would often return from these trips away and tell us how much he hated Melbourne. Apparently, you cannot find anything to eat in Melbourne. And so Steve would take with him a box of Weet-Bix and a carton of milk, and he would live on that for a week. And he loved food. His favourite, a roast pork with all the trimmings. And he loved the gumbo that Kim would make following his friend from America's recipe. He loved a pitmaster platter from the beach hotel, and he loved a good steak, and he had Vinny trained on just how to cook his steak to perfection. But Steve wasn't too fussy. He pretty much ate anything except for silverside and rice. The team at MFE have put together a tribute, and they've asked me to share that with you. Our MFE community has been deeply shocked and saddened by the news of Stephen's sudden death. For many of us, this has been a stark reminder of how important it is to pause, to check in on our own well-being, and to reach out for support when we need it. These conversations matter, and it's okay to ask for help. As I look back on the photos of our MFE workshops in Melbourne and Stephen's graduation in New Zealand, I am reminded of Stephen's warmth, his commitment, and his engagement with his fellow students. He embraced every activity, and he consistently demonstrated a strong understanding of the knowledge and the skills required to work in this field. Stephen's assignments and practical case studies were of a very high standard, and it was no surprise to any of us when he graduated with flying colours in his final exams. Our MFE team, including Ian Warren and Jackie Wright, felt genuinely honoured to be able to celebrate his graduation in New Zealand among his embalming peers. It was a very proud moment for all of us, and we hope that Stephen felt equally proud of his achievement. Stephen's death comes as a great loss to the funeral industry and the embalming community. Our hearts go out to his family, his friends, and all who knew him at this very sad time. Thank you, MFE. Whenever Stephen looked after sound and vision on our funerals, he would go through the music list with the celebrant or the person that was conducting the service, and his trademark phrase was, "Are you aware that we have an audiovisual presentation today? And so, Steve, I hope you are aware that we have one of those today."
Morning, there's a message on my phone. It's my mother saying, "Darling, please come home." I fear the worst, but how could you leave us all behind? There's so much to say, but there's so little time. So how do I say goodbye? Someone who's been with me for my whole damn life. You gave me my name and the color of your eyes. See your face when I look at mine. So how do I say goodbye when I couldn't? You always saw the best in me. Right or wrong, you were always on my side. But I'm scared of what life without you's like. And I saw the way she looked into your eyes. And I promise if you go, I will make sure she's alright. So how do I say goodbye? Someone who's been with me for my whole damn life. You gave me my name and the color of your eyes. See your face when I look at mine. So how do I say goodbye? And there's no way you could ever let me down. Gonna steal some time and start again. You'll always be my closest friend. And someday we're gonna make it out. Just hold the light. Just hold the light high, high. So how do I say goodbye to someone who's been with me for my whole damn life? You gave me my name and the color of your eyes. I see your face when I look at mine. So how do I say goodbye? So how do I say goodbye?
I'd like to share with you, I guess, a little tribute and some of our memories of Steve. Stephen has been a part of our Parkside team since August 2009, an impressive record by anyone's standards, especially in the funeral industry where burnout is high. He arrived here for an interview in a suit that was 3 sizes too big and needing a haircut. But he impressed us with the fact that he was willing to work. He started off as a funeral assistant, helping to carry out funerals, doing transfers, mowing lawns, cleaning vehicles, things like that. But we quickly realised that Stephen enjoyed mortuary work, caring for deceased persons and preparing them for their families to see. He very quickly became highly skilled at this, mending very broken bodies, giving very grateful families the opportunity to see their loved ones, often in situations where we had been told that no viewings would be possible. It was a matter of huge pride when Stephen with Parkside's support, undertook his embalming training through MFE in Melbourne, being the first one of his class to qualify, achieving his certificate in late 2024. In early October 2025, Stephen Kim travelled to New Zealand, where he was presented with his certificate, a huge matter of pride for him and for Kim as well. One of the other arenas where Stephen's talent lay was with information technology, or IT. Stephen would receive many calls from our office staff, simply calling for tech support. With often the first thing, Stephen's advice was often the first thing being to turn it on and to turn it off and turn it back on again, often fixing the issue. We often used to tell him how amazing he was, and he'd just casually shrug his shoulders and say, "Anyone can look it up on Google, that's all I do." When COVID struck and we had to move funerals from in-person to online via live streaming, Stephen worked out our system and how we could provide to our families what we believe is one of the best live streaming systems on the coast. He has built our computers, he has set up storage systems to cope with the huge amount of data that we store. Recently, he asked for a new toy, a computerised engraving machine to engrave our coffin nameplates, enabling us to create beautiful nameplates for the people who come into our care. Steve was a fairly unassuming, easygoing sort of bloke. He didn't blow his own trumpet. He was easy to have around. His work was done on time and always to the best of his ability. As a team player here at Parkside, we knew that if he did a job, it would be done well. He was a passionate believer in funeral work and the difference that it makes to a family. Steve had a wicked sense of humour, and he'd often make a dry comment during our staff lunchtime shenanigans. Steve loved a barbecue and would often be the instigator of making one happen, reminding us that it was time for another one, and often offering to bring the sausages or the drinks or whatever he could bring. Nearly every morning, Stephen would come upstairs into our office with his breakfast of champion, a can of Pepsi Max at 8:30 a.m. He'd open the day with his customary "and how are you today?" before planning and heading off to start his day. It would only be an hour or so later, at 10 a.m. sharp, that the call would come from the bottom of the staircase that it was drink time, peoples. Steve announced for us every day, without fail, if he was in the building, that it was time for our breaks and our lunch. When Kim was caring for Jeff and would be passing Parkside daily at around lunchtime, Steve would often have his lunch delivered, always takeaways, often with a fruit salad for dessert, and nearly always a bottle of vanilla Coke or Dr Pepper to wash it down. On days where we would be coming back from Smithton, a stop at the Rocky Cape shop is always in order. A feed of hot chips would have Stephen asleep in the passenger seat within 10 minutes. And we've all had many trips with him back from Queenstown, Circular Head, and even Wynyard, where Steve would be asleep in the passenger seat, usually before you'd reached the town boundary. We have many two-person double-checking systems in place around here, and at the time of sealing a coffin, Steve's usual catchphrase of "Are you 100% satisfied that this is insert name of person?" Often we would have a snigger in the office when Steve would ring through and ask for someone to do a double check that we had been summoned by Steve to get satisfied. More recently, Steve has been printing 3D games and bringing them into work, and most lunchtimes have been spent playing a few rounds of knucklebones or cards. Stephen will be missed in our workplace immensely. His cheerful, his easygoing nature, his unflappable, affable presence, his ability to work calmly under pressure. But mostly, we'll miss his quirkiness and the subtle dry humour that he brought here. Stephen left our world silently, suddenly, unexpectedly. We wish that we had answers. We wish that we could have done something. But now, all we can do is learn to accept and respect that he is gone. Stephen, we thank you. We thank you for being you. We thank you for the love of your family, for your acceptance of all those people in your life that you made family, even if they didn't share your blood. We thank you for being the best husband to Kim and for being the best dad that you could be to your children. We thank you for your dry sense of humour. We thank you for your quick wit and for keeping us all on our toes. We thank you for your love of a very shiny shoe, for giving your shoes a quick refresh with Mr. Sheen or Tyre Black, for your love of a bargain and online shopping. We thank you for your ability and for your skill on a computer, for being able to figure all things out to get things running. We thank you for your love of sci-fi, of Doctor Who, of Goosebumps, of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, of stage shows, of games and gaming. We thank you for your dedication and your expertise at your work. For all of these things and more, Steve, we thank you. You shouldn't feel ashamed of your grief. It is right to grieve. Your husband, your dad, your son, your brother, uncle, friend. He was unique. In the whole history of the world, there has never been anyone like him, and there will never be another, even if the world lasts for 100 million centuries. I ask of you not to search for Stephen in space or in time, because he's closer than that. It will take a while to readjust to his formlessness. We will all be called to let go of dreams, of a future with Stephen. And there will be much pain to be felt, much grief to experience, and many unanswered questions. But you will always hold Stephen close in your hearts, in your minds, and in your memories. He doesn't need his body anymore, and he's left it behind, just like an old winter coat discarded with the coming of the sunshine, allowing the real Stephen, his personality, his spirit, to go free. Steve, for us, you will always be forever young. You will never grow old in our memories. We will always wish that you had stayed much longer and that you had not left our lives. But yet, we set you free as you travel on into a different future from us. We will always remember you and all that you have given to us in your shortened life, and we will value who you were for us. And so as we accept life, we have to accept death. And as one of the unchanging laws of human existence, it is with grateful hearts that we remember all of the good things that we were able to share with you, Steve. It was good that we could share in your life and that we could receive from you. And with your earthly journey now ended, we commend your soul to the place it now lives in our hearts, and we commit his body for cremation to return earth to earth, ashes to ashes, and dust to dust. To close, I guess a little reminder and a last reference from Doctor Who. It says, when you're a kid, they tell you it's all grow up, get a job, get married, buy a house, have children, and that's it. But the truth is, the world is so much stranger than that. It's so much darker. It's so much madder, and it's so much better. And so as we prepare to move from the chapel, I would like to invite all of the people who are here today, who have worked alongside Steve at any point, to join us in forming a guard of honour, to show and to pay our collective respects and condolences to Steve's family as they escort him from the chapel. I can pretty much hear Steve just here behind me saying that the celebrant's gone on a bit. And so on that note, ladies and gentlemen, would you please stand?
Come with me, and you'll be in a world of pure imagination. Reach out, touch what was once just in your imagination. Don't be shy, it's alright if you feel a little trepidation. Sometimes these things don't need explanation. If you want to view paradise, simply look at them and view it. Somebody to hold on to, it's all we really need. Nothing else to it. Come with me, and you'll be in a world of pure imagination. Take a look, and you'll see into your imagination. We'll begin with a spin, traveling in the world of my creation. What we'll see will defy explanation. If you want to view paradise, simply look around and view it. Anything you want to do it. Want to change the world, there's nothing to it. There is nobody